Good morning and welcome to chapel once again in these unusual times that we're living in. Joining us this morning is our very own Nigel Rogers, who many of you will know. Good morning, Nige.
Morning, Paul.
How are you and where are you?
I'm very well. I'm on the Gold Coast at the moment. Yes.
And you're in the middle
But
of
as you
a
well know,
world to this. Sorry, you go.
Yeah, so we've just obviously are in the midst of moving to the Sunshine Coast from the Gold Coast. So, I mean, it is difficult, isn't it, to have to move from one coast to the other? It's terrible.
Very difficult. I take it you have some general sort of interest in the beach.
Yeah, no, none at all. No. Yeah, most of my life, I guess, adult life anyway, we've lived near the beach. I grew up in the country, but yeah.
Hey, what do you do at Trinity? What's your role here?
Not a lot, if you ask some people. No, so my role is obviously my role as the Dean of Formation. Involves lecturing accredited units. At the moment, I'm teaching biblical theology of work and 2 half units, ministry foundation, and engaging in word-based ministries. And I'm also teaching in our new Master of Missional Leadership, teaching a unit called Missional Leadership in the 21st Century. But then there's the non-accredited stuff that happens particularly in relation to forming people to be ministers in the life of the Uniting Church. And that has a whole range of elements to it, teaching short courses, workshops, working with candidates to be able to ensure that they're really well prepared to be able to go into all sorts of different ministry contexts to be able to further the kingdom of God.
Yeah, such an important role.
Does that sound about right?
It sounds about right to me. That's fantastic. And when you're not here in sort of reading theology, teaching theology and thinking theologically, what sort of stuff do you like to read?
Oh, mate, I'm a fan of the spy thriller.
Ooh.
John le Carre, Robert Ludlum, these sort of guys.
Do you fancy yourself a bit of a Jason Bourne type character?
Mate, Jason Bourne and I could not be further apart.
Oh.
I don't have amnesia to begin with.
When you took
I'm fairly...
I think we've got a bit of a delay, but when you took so long to answer, I thought maybe he's got some amnesia right now and he's just playing that Bourne identity.
That's right, yeah. Well, look, we're all still trying to find ourselves, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
I've used that as a sermon illustration at some point.
Have you really?
Yeah, piecing together pieces of your identity and working out who you are.
Nice.
But enough about me and Jason Bourne.
Sure.
This is a bit of a personal question, Nige.
Sure.
It's a bit loaded, but got any addictions, mate?
Well, there is an awkward pause. There isn't there because I think a lot of people know that I probably drink a little bit too much coffee. Some have suggested that I might have an issue with drinking too much coffee. There are certain days where probably around the halls of Trinity I'm bouncing a bit like Tigger. It's probably more due to the coffee than anything else. But
and you have a coffee machine in your office, right?
Yeah. Look, see, this is the problem. I've got a coffee machine in the office. There's a cafe downstairs. There's another cafe, obviously within short walking distance, and there's always that big urn or the big sort of filter coffee that's on. So there's an endless supply. And I think that there should be some intervention perhaps at times from people. That's
true. We're not really helping you, are we?
You're not.
No.
I would appreciate at times maybe just,
but
making it work a bit better.
On the other hand, we all love your energy. So,
Well, there you go.
Okay,
well, let's not change a thing. Let's just agree to keep it as it is.
That's it. Just keep drinking that coffee. Hey, it's been good to get to know you a little bit this morning, Nige. And we look forward to getting to know you more in the semesters and years to come.
Thanks, Paul.
See you, mate.
See you, mate.
A reading from 2 Kings 6, 8 through 23. Once, when the king of Aram was at war with Israel, he took counsel with his officers. He said, "At such and such a place shall my camp be." But the man of God sent word to the king of Israel, "Take care not to pass this place, because the Arameans are going down there." The king of Israel sent word to the place of which the man of God spoke. More than once or twice he warned such a place, so that it was on the alert. The mind of the king of Aram was greatly perturbed because of this. He called his officers and said to them, "Now tell me, who among us sides with the king of Israel?" Then one of his officers said, "No one, my lord king. It is Elisha, the prophet in Israel, who tells the king of Israel the words that you speak in your bedchamber." And he said, "Go and find where he is. I will send and seize him." He was told, "He is in Dothan." So he sent horses and chariots there, and a great army. They came by night and surrounded the city. When an attendant of the man of God rose early in the morning and went out, an army with horses and chariots was all around the city. His servant said, "Alas, master, what shall we do?" He replied, "Do not be afraid, for there are more with us than there are with them." Then Elisha prayed, "O Lord, please open his eyes that he may see." So the Lord opened the eyes of the servant, and he saw the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. When the Arameans came down against him, Elisha prayed to the Lord and said, "Strike this people, please, with blindness." So he struck them with blindness, as Elisha had asked. Elisha said to them, "This is not the way, and this is not the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the man whom you seek." And he led them to Samaria. As soon as they entered Samaria, Elisha said, "O Lord, open the eyes of these men so that they may see." And the Lord opened their eyes, and they saw that they were inside Samaria. When the king of Israel saw them, he said to Elisha, "Father, shall I kill them? Shall I kill them?" He answered, "No." "Did you capture with your sword and your bow those whom you want to kill? Set food and water before them, so that they may eat and drink, and let them go to their master." So he prepared for them a great feast. After they ate and drank, he sent them on their way, and they went to their master. And the Arameans no longer came raiding into the land of Israel. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
G'day. Just wanted to talk to you a little bit about that text that we've just had read to us in 2 Kings 6. It's an interesting story. I love Old Testament narratives. They're so rich, aren't they? And there's one central theme in that story, and it's not battle, it's not prophecy, it's not even Elisha himself. That narrative is about sight. It's about seeing. And often when we talk about seeing, we're really asking whether or not someone can see what's there, right? What's right in front of them. Do you see that? Did you see that? It's a question of whether someone has perceived the thing that you have perceived. But if we go a little bit deeper than that, there's more to seeing than just perceiving whether something is in front of you or not. What a person sees or doesn't see often says something about them, doesn't it? There are personality tests or psychology tests that present you with images and ask you, what do you see? And your answers to those questions are not really about identifying what's actually there. Your answers are telling you something about who you are. The Rorschach test is a well-known example of that. You're presented with a series of ink blots and asked the question, what do you see? Now, of course, the psychologist, she's not trying to work out from you what's on the page right in front of her. No, she's working out who you are. And the basic idea is that when you are shown a meaningless ink blot on a page, your brain tries to ascribe meaning to it. And well, what you see says more about you than it does about the ink blot. So for instance, have a look at this one. What do you see here? I'm not going to go into what might or might not be there, but this is an important question. What do you see? Because what you see and sometimes what you don't see says a lot about you. And as you study theology, as you study the Bible, as you grow as a Christian, it's my hope that you would begin to see things differently. Here at Trinity, it's our hope, the faculty and the staff here, that although the world hasn't changed in, let's say, 1, 2 or 3 years that you study here, what you see should be quite different when you leave this place, when you finish your studies. And that's not because the world itself has changed, it's not because anything that you're looking at has changed. The Bible hasn't changed, but you've changed. So let's take a look at this Old Testament narrative, the best kind of narrative, about seeing. There are 3 Israelites in this story, and each of them, these main characters, each of them sees differently. And their ability to see or not see tells us a lot about them. Each of them, therefore, has something to teach us about ourselves too, about our own capacity to see or not see. To see or not to see, that is the question. And so the story begins, like most stories do, with a problem, right? There's tension that needs to be resolved, and the problem is the prophet Elisha himself. More specifically, it's Elisha's ability to see. Elisha is not a problem within Israel, he's a problem for the king of Aram. See, every time the Arameans plan an attack on Israel, Elisha knows, he sees, he hears, and he reports to the king of Israel. And this is problematic for the king of Aram, of course. So staying with our theme, what does Elisha's seeing tell us about who Elisha is? Well, it confirms first and foremost that he is Yahweh's prophet. Another word that's sometimes used for prophet in the Old Testament is a seer, S-E-E-R, literally a seer. Not a hearer, not a thinker, not a runner, but a seer. Someone who sees beyond what is in front of their face. Someone who can see or perceive what God is doing in and through a situation that looks really tough. And as this story goes on, we will see again and again that Elisha can see what others do not see. My mum passed away 11 years ago, but boy was she perceptive. I would tell her things that were going on in my life, and we would chat, and she'd get the details straight just by talking to me, and then would come her question. Not a clarifying question about some detail in what I'd said, but the question. The question that would really define the entire conversation from there forward, and the question that I would go away thinking about. Because she would see through the fluff, she'd see through the games that I was playing, the games that we all play when we talk. She would see straight to the heart of it all. I wonder if that's you. Are you a seer? Are you someone who can discern what's really going on? Now, this Aramean king, he wants to deal with the prophet Elisha. So he gathers all his forces and he targets this one man, because if he can get to Elisha, he can get back to raiding Israel successfully. With the element of surprise, which, by the way, is quite handy when it comes to battle and warfare and so on. But of course, as we suspected, Elisha knows about this attack as well, right? He sees what's coming. So at this point, we're introduced to our second character, Elisha's attendant, or his servant, or his sidekick. And Elisha's sidekick doesn't see in the way that Elisha sees. So staying with our theme again, what does the servant's lack of sight say about the servant, about this attendant? Well, when he's introduced, he's described first as an attendant, but in the very next verse, a different word is used. And it's a word that means boy or lad in Hebrew. So he was quite possibly a teenager, quite young. And perhaps the point of that description is simply that Elisha's sidekick lacks maturity. He's yet to learn to see beyond the end of his own nose. I've got 2 daughters, 6 and 9, and they both fixate directly on what is right in front of them, right? In fact, if they're blowing up for whatever reason, getting a bit cross about something, if I'm sort of tempted to engage that head on, my wife will gently say, just distract them. That's all you need to do. Put something right in front of their face and they will forget about everything else. And she's right. That's exactly what happens. And so we're not surprised with this young boy when he gets up in the morning and he freaks out. He freaks out because all he can see is that the city is surrounded by horses, by chariots, by warriors, spears. And he says what any trusty sidekick says to the superhero in a moment of crisis. Holy Toledo, we're surrounded. Sorry about the American accent, it just popped out. Well, that's not quite what he says, but he does say the 1000 BC equivalent. About 3,000 years ago it was, alas, master, what shall we do? What was that accent? I'm going to just going to press on. It's a very good question. What shall we do? What do we do in situations like that? And we look at Elisha and we ask him, what would you do in this situation? What would you pray for? Deliverance, power, strength, courage? Now look, all of those things would be good in a situation like this, but Elisha asks for none of those. Elisha prays instead for sight, for insight. He prays for the ability to see better, to see what's really going on. And he doesn't even pray that for himself, but for the boy alongside him. Now, if this isn't a lesson in pastoral care, I don't know what is. When times are tough, when the odds are overwhelming, when you're stuck and you can't find an escape hatch, don't pray for a way out until you've prayed and asked to see what's really going on. Don't pray for a way out until you've asked God to show you what is really going on. And if you can see what's going on, as Elisha can here, then you can begin to pray for those around you. Pray that they might also have eyes to see, their eyes open, to see things as they really are. You can pray for church leadership. You can pray for your family. You can pray for your work colleagues. Whoever you're with, you can pray that their eyes will be opened to the opportunities in front of them and to see what's really going on. Now that's what Elisha does. He prays that this boy's eyes will be open so that he can see. To see Elisha's point of view? No. To see God's point of view. To see what's real. And the Lord opened the eyes of the boy and he saw. The mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. That's verse 17. Now let's be honest, when we talk about seeing beyond what's obvious, like what's right in front of our faces, we are talking about maturity, aren't we? Someone who can hear offensive words but not take them personally because they can see that they've probably been spoken by someone who's hurting. Someone who already knows the best course of action in any given situation, but they hold back from speaking because they want others to discover it, to see it for themselves. Without pushing, without saying, I told you so, I knew it already. Or someone who knows your problems, your struggles, your failures, but who loves you. They don't judge you, they don't treat you differently because of those things. They pray that in due course your eyes will be open and you'll see. Those qualities come with maturity, all of them. How's your maturity today? How's your ability to see beyond improving with your age, as it surely ought to do? I hope that's the case for you. Now the next thing that Elisha does is to trap these Arameans. Again, the story sticks with the theme of sight, only this time Elisha prays that the Aramean army be blinded. And when they're struck with blindness, Elisha then leads them into the city. Now, the irony gets pretty thick at this point, because they came for him. They came to get him. They've never seen him or heard him speak, so they don't recognize his voice. When he says to them, follow me. I'll take you to the man that you seek. Come on, let's go. And they follow him. It's almost a little bit Monty Python. And sure enough, they follow. And when they open their eyes and their sight is restored, who is this standing right in front of them? It's Elisha. They've been led into a trap. That's how they would see it. The armies of Aram are within the walls of Samaria. And here we meet our third and final character. And like the boy before him, the king can't see very well either. Okay, this third character is the king. In verse 21, the king says, it says, when the king of Israel saw them, he said to Elisha, Father, shall I kill them? Shall I kill them? What the Israelite army sees, the Israelite king sees, is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for victory, for vengeance, an opportunity to crush his enemy that has been hounding him for so long. It makes perfect sense, right? Finally, he has them, trapped, surrounded, sitting ducks right in front of him. Now that's what the king sees. But what does this tell us about the kind of person that he is? Well, the king is evidently someone who grasps at what's in front of him. He's impulsive. Repetition like this is rare in Hebrew, right? You don't often get the same phrase repeated twice like that. But here we have him repeating himself because he's so eager to get the job done. Can I kill them? Can I kill them? And now Elisha becomes a problem for the king of Israel. Not just the king of Aram, now he's a problem for the king of Israel because Elisha doesn't see what the king of Israel sees. He doesn't see vengeance here. He doesn't even see judgment. Elisha sees a very different kind of opportunity. An opportunity to show mercy. Mercy. And he's not just thinking about letting them live, is he? That would be merciful enough. No, Elisha sees well beyond that. He says no to the king. Did you capture with your sword and your bow those whom you want to kill? Set food and water before them so that they may eat and drink, and let them go to their master. Now, Paul talks in the New Testament about blessing your enemies. I'd say this is a pretty good example of that. Have you ever been in one of those situations where you have every right to hit back, to hold a grudge, to cease contact, to turn away from someone? What do you see when you're in that situation? Because what Elisha sees here is a rare opportunity to help others see the character of God. It's a chance to make God known, and he takes it. In verse 23 it says, so he prepared for them a great feast, and after they ate and drank, he sent them on their way, and they went to their master. And the last line of the story comes as no surprise, really. It says this, and the Arameans no longer came raiding into the land of Israel. We're not surprised at that, because Elisha's actions have enabled Israel's neighbors to see who God is. A God of mercy, a God of grace. So, to students here at Trinity and to people beyond the college, as you keep reading the Bible, as you keep growing and learning, I hope that you'll continue to ponder this question. What do you see? In each situation that arises, be it wonderful or tragic, fair or unfair, painful or pleasant, I would encourage you to pause now and then and to look for insight. Pray for insight. Look for maturity. Look for mercy.